May?
June.
June. Okay.
April.
April, May, June. Okay. As a rule, most of the big fish arrive on this, sometimes they hit very
What
early.
in June?
Yeah, June to July seems to be exceptionally well in the last few years, and especially on the new moon. So if you can get a new moon in the end of June to July, oh, I'll tell you something else too that a lot of guys didn't know. There's been a bite going on in July on digger crabs. You know what they are? Do you know what little digger crabs are? They're little crabs that have that long nose, and they dig in the sand. They have no legs, you can't see, they're underneath. They look like a giant sand flea.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? In mid-July, late July, on the new moon coming into the, they spawn, and you can tell because they got an orange sack of eggs on them. So if you see them in the sand, they're orange. At dead low tide, there are millions of them. You can see the hole in the sand. We've been catching fish in the 40-pound plus class for the last 4 or 5 years on that bite. They're right in the wash at the end of the tide. They've been here every year for the last 5 to 6 years.
Sand fleas?
Well, the sand fleas have always been there. But the bass are feeding on them in July when the rest of the bait's gone, and they come in they don't come in the whole tide. They come in on the very end of the tide, the last hour of the outgoing, just to feed on them, because the big fish we caught are stuffed with them. And they probably come in for a 15-and-a-half-hour bite. You know, they just come in, they cruise in quick, they're very close to the beach, don't cast, they're right in front of you. And if you look wide, at the end of the tide, if you go to the beach, the first thing you see at any tide, but especially the end of the tide, if you step into the water, you sink a foot or two. The big bass cruise that line because all our bunker that we throw in, all the bait, gets rolled up and rolled down the beach. And the big fish come in on a quick set and run down the beach. They're so close to the beach, it's hard to fish. I for one, I can't fish right here. So I actually walk back a little bit. Because if you set a hook 10 feet away from you, it's crazy. There's too much tension on the line, you know, so you got to walk back. But you might get a really big fish fishing that bite, and it takes place in July. And we've caught fish in the last few years all summer. We've had them all July, all August, for the last few years running, because the bunker have been coming through here all July and August. And that's the key. The bunker, the key to is really big fish on the beach. Because the beach isn't a natural place for fish. They only visit.
When's the first sign of the bunker comes down your way?
The gill netters start catching bunker religiously the 3rd week in March every single year. But you won't catch fish that early. They're too far offshore. The first run of fish, you should be able to consistently catch fish by the end of April. And by May, you're in full swing. But the real big fish, there's a couple of different bodies of fish we get. The real big fish are usually June. Last year we had them in May, but it's usually June. And it's usually the 2nd, 3rd week in June that you consistently. So if you get a moon, if you can get a moon in the middle to the end of June, you got a real good chance at a huge fish. And you got to target around those areas to really put your time in to do it. You know? For the guys that catch a really big fish on a lure, I give them a ton of credit because it's a lot more work than with bait. But for every big fish you catch on a lure, you catch 50 of them on bait. So if you're just targeting huge fish, you need bait.